Hey guys, and welcome to the Alabama Saltwater Fishing Report presented by Great Days Outdoors Magazine. The first podcast is bringing a local inshore, offshore, and onshore fishing report, whether it's good, bad, or ugly. This week's Alabama Saltwater Fishing Report is brought to us by Dixie Supply. Dixie Supply and Baker Metalworks are proud to be your metal roofing headquarters for over 40 years. Save time and money by buying from the most reliable manufacturer on the Gulf Coast. Buy it today, pick it up today. They offer 20 Sherwin-Williams colors to choose from and have a 40-year warranty. Baker Metal and Dixie Supply, two names, same great service. With the addition of their new store in Cantonment, Florida, they now have 8 locations to serve you. Dixie Supply and Baker Metalworks, your metal roofing headquarters. And also brought to us by CCA Alabama, a great way to support conservation projects like the Claude Petit Flounder and Speckled Trout Hatchery and the University of South Alabama Cobia Tagging Project is through the purchase of a distinctive CCA Alabama saltwater fishing license plate. Head over to Alabama Department of Revenue's distinctive license plate page at revenue.alabama.gov to get yours. I am joined today with Joe Baya. I am Butch Theory, your host. How are we doing today, Joe?
I'm pretty good, man. Do you think they could get like one of those license plates with like you missing a cobia with the gaff or something like that?
That's never been seen ever, so I would think they could not do that.
That's never happened ever?
It's never happened ever. Nope.
You are a dead eye with gaff. I will give you that. I
had a lot of practice and a lot of very high pressure situations, if you will. Not saying I don't miss, but was forged by fire, if you will.
Right. There was consequences if you missed.
Indeed. Indeed, I'll leave it at that. Lots of tongue lashings. And
man, you stroked a big trout this week. I saw that big fatty. How'd that go?
Did, man. That was a lot of fun. Me and Captain Richard Rutland were just kind of poking around, looking for some fish for a couple of tournaments he has coming up. Old Goblin, man, slick lure, gobbled it up. That was fun. My personal best.
I like to see that you're posting, and I saw Patrick Garmison posting a little bit of the action of that slick lure. You know, it took you a while to get the hang of it, didn't it?
Oh yeah, man. I mean, and that's what I keep telling everyone. All the people posting all over Facebook, I can't figure it out, or I'll try it for this many casts or this many mornings. I just got to go back to my old faithful or whatever. I made a point, kind of like I did with Topwater recently. I just made a point to, that's it. That's what I'm throwing. It may be a different color, based on conditions, cloud cover, etc. Water clarity, but I'm throwing it and I'm figuring it out and getting pretty good at it, man.
Hey, pro tip, don't go fishing with anybody else whenever you commit to sticking with a certain lure, because it makes it way, way harder when your buddy's kicking your butt from the other side of the boat with something different. Yeah.
Luckily, all those guys throw slicks too, so it's easy to take a beating sometimes.
Yeah. Well, man, this has been tough to get some fishing reports this week. I was talking with one of our listeners earlier this week, and he was, we were just carrying on about different things. And I told him, it's a lot of times it's really tough for us to get fishing reports. Well, a lot of it's because, believe it or not, fishermen are not the most forthcoming with their knowledge.
Right.
So y'all should really be appreciative of the guides who are willing to give away this knowledge, because not everybody's like that. But also, I think everybody's just staying warm right now. What's going on this week? Are we even going to be able to have some reports?
Oh yeah, man. We got a nice east side inshore report coming from Dusty Hayes, and Captain Richard Rutland's going to give a good inshore report. I'm just going to head over your way, man, and get Adam Peeples over at One Shot Charters to give us the offshore. I think he's got some sword stories, and I'll be curious to see what he has to say.
Yeah, man. You got any sword steaks left in the freezer?
I'm so sad. I do not. I'm out. I'll come rob you.
Time to go fishing again is what that means.
Hey, I'm down for that too.
All right,
our
man.
Beach guys have been not fishing. Bama Beach bum has been not on the beach, and just being a bum, I guess.
Yeah.
But yeah, I have not been able to get a surf report at all, but that's all right. We'll pivot and audible and punt and do what we got to do to get you guys the best report we can.
10-4, buddy. All right, let's get into it.
We'll set on down to see what Adam Peeples is doing. One Shot Charters out of Destin. What you say, Captain Adam? How you been doing, buddy? Tell us a fish story. I saw you caught a pretty nice one not too long ago.
All right, guys, I'm doing good. Other than being cold all the time around here, it seems like warm and dry winter they called for has been anything but that. But yeah, man, doing good. Was able to slide out and do a little fishing last week, so I can't complain.
Well, we don't allow cold complaints during the middle of hunting season, man. So you just need to keep those to yourself until about middle of February, and then
February 15th.
Right? Well, so you've been doing a little sword fishing, huh?
Yeah, man. This year, for various reasons, I've done very little fishing since October, between weather and boat issues and life in general. And it's odd because usually I fish a lot in the fall and early winter. So saw a decent weather window and told the wife, like, man, we hadn't had fresh swordfish steaks in like 3 or 4 months. So I got to go get one. We jumped at the opportunity, loaded up a couple of buddies, and we went out there and got lucky and caught one. So it was a great day.
Yeah, that is so much fun, man. How big was the fish y'all caught?
I'd say about 250. It was a nice fish.
That's a good one.
Little fat fish. She was just absolutely slap full of bait. In there fattening up for the spawn, I'm guessing, but just slap full and just a great fish. Funny story about that fish is, and you guys fished with me before, we'll do weird things that may or may not get you a bite sometimes.
Yeah, I thought we weren't going to talk about that.
Well, listen, hey, this is a top secret right here. So I hope everybody's going to, we tried different music throughout the day, different radio stations on XM, and we tried classic rock, and we tried the Bob Marley station, and we tried Lithium. We just tried everything. And I said, man, I think they just really need to hear some 90s girl music, something crazy. So put it on, like the second song that comes on was the Dawson's Creek theme song. And I said, this is the song that we're going to get the bite to. And I looked away, and my buddy Capt and Jarrett was on the rod, and I heard him start reeling real fast. And I said, did we just get bit? And he said, oh yeah. And sure enough, we got bit on the song. It's pretty funny.
That's funny, man. Do you think, and I may be showing my inexperience with daytime sword fishing here, do you think those fish act any different whenever the water temperature gets low in these months?
I don't. And I'll tell you why I don't think that. Number one, in the daytime fishery, the conditions down there are the same all the time. They're really not changing much. And so the surface temp we had out there was right around 70 degrees, which I have found that the fishing still can be very, very good for swords in the 69 plus degree water temperatures, because they'll still come up and feed at night in that water. That's not going to prohibit. It's not too cold for them. They're down there in cold water anyways. I think it doesn't affect the bait that they feed on. And so if the bait's still acting like it normally does, I think the fish still do. And I've had some really jam up days and caught some nice fish in the wintertime out there. So I don't think it affects them a whole lot.
I want to back you up to what you were saying about the surface water temperature and how that is affecting the bait, which then affects those swordfish coming up to feed on them. Do you find any relation to surface temperature changes, surface temperature breaks, and being able to target swordfish, or are they more of a spot fishery? What do you think about that?
At night, we start talking about nighttime fishing, for sure. At nighttime, if you can find a temperature break, you're where you need to be. It's just like in the daytime, blue water trolling, any type of fishing like that. Those temperature breaks are where the bait's going to congregate. And if you got bait that's going to be congregated, you typically going to have your predators hanging around too. So yeah, at night, if things line up so that there is a rip or a temperature break, especially in relation to some bathymetry that looks good, some bottom structure, that's really where I'm going to focus in on fishing. During the daytime, I'm spot fishing, but at night, it's a totally different deal, and it's just a different setup for sure.
Well, did that fish show what it was worth? I mean, was it a good fight? What can somebody expect if they haven't caught a swordfish before? Tell the audience what they can expect as far as what's the fastest you've ever caught a swordfish and what's the longest fight you've ever had.
This one was on the fast end for sure. It was hooked deep in the gut, and I could tell immediately upon hookup that it was hurt. And we knew it was a nice fish. When we came tight on it, it started pulling drag down deep, and just obviously a heavy fish. And you could tell it was hurt, just the way it's acting, kind of the way it's fighting. It came up pretty steady. We were able to get the weight off immediately. In fact, it kind of charged the boat a little bit, got the weight off. Just saw a brief glimpse of the fish, saw dorsal and tail out of the water, and I knew it was a nice one. And then it went down to about 250 foot and stayed down there for, I don't know, maybe 10 minutes, maybe a little bit longer. And then it started coming up. And when it came up, it actually rolled up on the surface, and I just threw the boat in reverse and backed up to it and darted it, and we had it in the boat in 30 minutes, 35 minutes.
It's my kind of fight right there.
Yeah, it was. Listen, I fought that same size fish for 3 hours, so it was. It worked out because it was time to go in, and it was a late in the day bite. It's one of those times where just
came together.
Out. Yep.
Man, listening to you tell that story, I feel like I need a cigarette now.
You've
Really,
accomplished it.
really gets me going. Listening to those swordfish stories. Well, man, that's good. And a lot of people don't realize swordfish can be caught year round. You fish for them 12 months out of the year. That's really awesome. What else is going on? I saw Tom Hilton made a post earlier this week about the excellent water conditions that we have right now in the Gulf of Mexico. What are you hearing through the grapevine, or what's your plan for the trips you got coming up?
Well, I'm itching to get out to the rigs for sure and do some tuna fishing and maybe a little live baiting for some blue ones. Just need weather and schedules and things to align with that. But yeah, I anticipate the fishing out there around the rigs to be very, very good right now. Especially, the few reports I have heard have been good. As Tom has pointed out, the conditions out there are excellent. Even the conditions out there around where the fads and stuff are not bad for this time of year. And it might not even be a bad idea to investigate those if you had a day and you just wanted to burn some gas and go offshore. It looks really good, and I'm absolutely chomping at the bit to go out there and make a long run and do some serious fishing soon.
Adam, take me through what you do to plan a trip of that distance, regardless of if you're in a boat that can run fast or, is cruising at 15 knots. You got a long run regardless. So take me through what you do to plan a trip of that magnitude when you don't have a buddy report. A lot of times if you're plugged in, you've talked to some friends and, hey, we caught 6 yellowfins at the Rampowell last night. Looks really good. And that's always helpful. But if you're just looking at Hilton's real-time navigator, and you've got that good picture of what's going on with sea surface temperatures or altimetry and whatnot, what are the different things that are going to help you plan a trip, and maybe take everybody through some of those other factors that might weigh in on where you go?
I'll tell you, going blind into a trip like that is actually, I enjoy it a little bit more than having the X already laid out for me, just because it feels a whole lot better when you figure out where they're at on your own place. It's just kind of get that feeling like, all right, kind of know what I'm doing a little bit. And
Definitely.
So I definitely, Hilton's is where I start, and looking at Hilton's, looking at the currents, looking at the water temperature, looking where the temperature breaks are. That's a big part of it. And then also looking back at my logs and, historically, where have I done good this time of year? Where is typically good this time of year? And kind of lining those things up with the current conditions. Kind of just, hey, it's a gamble for sure. Having a boat that we can cover a lot of ground and hit a lot of rigs is also beneficial. That's helpful because sometimes they're right there when you get there and everything lays out just as it would be. And sometimes you might be 40, 50 miles from where you need to be when you get out there. It just depends, but it's definitely a crapshoot. But it helps looking back at, his historical fishing and also at the current conditions on Hilton's. That's my main way to plan where I'm going to go, and just kind of roll the dice and see how it shakes out.
Butch, that's why we don't let you plan these kind of trips. You can't even pick what deer stand you want to go to in the afternoon. So
just so many options, man. It's overwhelming.
It's all right. It was always better wherever you were going to go but didn't go to, right?
Man, it's hard. I get torn between different places all the time. I can never make up my mind. It's probably a good thing. Yeah, probably a good thing I'm not in charge of those decisions.
Next time you need to go, you just call Adam and be like, hey, man, here's what we got going on. We got a northwest wind. What do you
Here's
think?
the wind direction. Yeah. It's a 3 deer day, according to Huntcast.
Right, yeah.
I'm good at making a decision. It's just not going to be the right one more often than not.
Right. Yeah. Well, that's a good report, man. I'm excited by that report because, again, we talk about it enough on here. The off seasons are still awesome fishing. Most people they're focused on deer hunting or whatever
off
else.
Season.
But this year, I really think, this year, this is the first COVID winter we've had. I think it's just going to be more and more people fishing and getting out there and enjoying it. I'm excited to see what the rest of the winter brings. And Adam, I know you planned a really awesome tip for us this week. We're going to get it from you, but not before we hear from this week's offshore tip sponsor. And of course, it's Hilton's Offshore Charts.
This tip is brought to us by Hilton's Real-Time Navigator, bringing you the highest quality online satellite fishing chart since 2004. Your source for sea temps, altimetry, currents, and watercolor at hiltonsoffshore.com.
All right, Captain Adam, what are you thinking for a tip this week?
So my tip this week revolves around, like we were talking, planning trips offshore this time of year, and mainly the weather and how to pick a good time to go. Because I don't know about you guys, but I've definitely had my butt kicked more than once in the wintertime running out by a north wind.
Oh yeah.
Something like that. I've got a few different things that I look at in planning a trip, like the swordfish trip we just did last week. It was a tight window, but I felt very confident in it, and it worked out. Doesn't always work out like that, but just I think diversifying what you look at as far as forecasts go. Too many people just look at the NOAA forecast and let it rip and use that as gospel. And there's so many more things that you can look at to plan and help you make the right decision. One of the, there are several wind apps that I look that are available. Wind Finder is the one I prefer. It's really cool because you can see every 3 hours what the wind is supposed to do and how it changes. And it's really amazing how accurate it is at calling the wind. Fishing in a 30-foot center console, 10 knots of wind makes a big difference, in either direction. And so being able to look at that and kind of correlate that to the NOAA forecast. And then I also use another forecasting service on Saltwater Central called Reefcast. Reefcast is really cool because it takes all of the models and combines them together. And basically it's like a graph. You look at the graph. And so you can use their forecast, which combines the models, or you can separate it and look at all the different models. I'm talking about models. I'm talking about like the Euro and the GFS, the same stuff they use to predict the storms. And so when all of those models are in close agreement, kind of like with a hurricane, when the cone gets tight, they have a high, they're high confidence level in that forecast. So that was one of the things I looked at last week. All the models were in pretty good agreement. So even though it was a tight weather window, they agreed that it was going to be there. And so we pulled the trigger on it, and they were right. So my tip would be just, hey, don't get stuck looking at one forecast service. Try to use all of them. And then over time, you'll kind of get a hang of which ones that you have confidence in, and they'll help you not get your butt kicked more often than not.
Adam, you're running a 30-foot Cape Horn most of the time. We got a lot of guys listening to the show that run a boat that's within 5 feet of that, and in that same class of boat. When you're looking at something like wind, do you have a wind number where you just say, look, no go? Or is it a combination of factors where you're saying, wind's higher than I'd like, but the waves are spaced out? Do you have some criteria that you use when you're just not going to have a good time out there?
It's a combination of things. How bad I want to go fishing is one of them. The thing with the Gulf is once you start getting into that 13 to 18 knot category, let's say they fudge it and it's more 15 to 20 knot category. That's sloppy, and I fished a lot, and it's just part of it, especially charter fishing. You're going to fish in it sometimes, but if I'm going for fun and I see 13 to 18, I start debating on whether I want to do it. Now, when our trip the other day, they were calling 13 to 18, laying off to next to nothing. And it was sloppy in the morning on the way out, but by 10 a.m., it had laid off. And then by the time we rode home, we ran in at 35 knots. So there's really no hard answer for that for me. I mean, it's just there's so much more. What direction is it going to blow out of? What time is it going to start blowing? And that goes back to that Wind Finder app. Too many times the NOAA forecast will say 13 to 18 knots winds all day, and then I'll look at Wind Finder and I say, well, that's not supposed to blow till after lunch, and I'm able to go fishing, have a pretty enjoyable time of it, and it doesn't get windy till we're coming in. Yeah, it's hard for me to say for sure there's a certain cutoff, but there definitely is. It just varies.
Yeah, definitely. And like you say, makes a big difference on how long you've been gone without sword stakes too.
That's right.
Well, Captain Adam, that's a great report, man. That's a great tip. I know that our listeners will appreciate it. If folks want to get up with you and book a trip, what's the best way to get in contact with you?
Oh, just check out the website, www.oneshotcharters.com. It's got all my other contact info, all the different trips, all of our social media info. That's the best place to look. Or just give me a call, 850-585-9436. I'd be happy to answer any questions or get a trip booked or whatever they need.
Butch, you and I have been lucky enough to get to fish a lot as deckhands, working in the charter industry. in our personal lives have gotten to fish a lot. And, Adam was talking about, like, depends on how bad I want to go. You and I are definitely guilty of, like, just not being that mad anymore. But when I start
being pansies, it's okay.
Yeah,
you can say it.
I'm
a little
trying
bit
to
of a
make it
pansy
sound a
these
little
days.
more masculine, okay?
A little more tough.
Yeah. I mean, we've been there, done that.
That's right.
That's right. But no, when I listen to him talk about those freaking swordfish, man, it's still, I get the tingles.
Yeah. Oh yeah, man. It's still my favorite. I still get mad at those guys for sure.
They are just a beast of a fish. So much fun. If you have not experienced sword fishing, specifically daytime fishing, definitely give old Capt a call if you're looking for a charter out of the Destin Fort Walton Beach area. The dude, he's on them big time.
Yep.
Well, buddy, I got to get over here and wrap up the rest of my show. I know you got to go knock out the Alabama saltwater, the rest of the inshore and onshore opportunities over that way. We're going to do the same thing over here. We'll
I enjoyed it.
On for a little while.
Yep, I enjoyed being with you as well. I'm sure we'll talk to you soon.
All right, buddy. Talk to you later.
All right, that's a great offshore segment. Always good to hear from Captain Adam and Joe Baya. Let's head on down to Mobile Bay, Mississippi Sound. Never know where he's going to be. Captain Richard Rutland. What you say, Cap? How we doing today, buddy?
Man, if I was any better, I'd be you, Halls.
Man, I hadn't heard from you since last year on the report, man. It's been a long time.
Oh, man, you ain't kidding about that, huh?
Me and Joe talked about that slob I caught a couple of days ago on your boat. That was fun, man. I'm still on cloud nine from that. That was fun.
Yeah, that was fun. I enjoyed that thoroughly. That was a great little afternoon, or I guess call that mid-morning, midday bite we got on.
Yeah, special, whatever it was, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah, that's right. So we hadn't really talked since we went fishing, except a little texting here or there. And, when we went, we were scouting for the Battle of the Grubs tournament. We ended up finishing up second place.
Nice. Congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you. Congratulations to the winners, Jeb Mann and Mike Nichols. They had kind of a different kind of sack, I would guess you'd say, of fish. We had a sack of 3 fish, which is the tournament limit, and they beat us with 2 fish. So,
dang.
Yeah, they had.
I hadn't picked up on that yet.
I know. My feelings are real hurt about that. I hope those guys are on cloud nine about it, So, but anyway, what can you do? I'm going to get back on the horse and beat them next time.
That's all you got to do is get mad and beat them next time. Yep, I like it.
Yeah,
man.
but hey, so something pretty cool happened. It's kind of a neat little story I kind of want to tell everybody, We're always like in a hurry on tournament day, You go and pay at 5 o'clock in the morning. And heck, sunrise isn't till like, you're not getting fishable light till like 6:30 right now,
Oh yeah.
So we leave the to pay, paying up and go drop the boat in the water and go, we're just kind of almost not even enthused to get out there that early because you're going to sit in the dark for about an hour before the sun comes up. Right. Well, we kind of get everything out, get everything situated, get the live well ready for what we hope is going to be some fish and whatnot. And I'm like, man, I ain't just going to sit here for an hour in the dark and freeze to death, because it was so cold. I'm like, man, I'm going to make a few casts. So I get up on the bow of the boat. There's no light whatsoever. Pitch black dark. The only light I can see are the running lights on the water. You know what I mean? On the bow of the boat. And I'm casting. Maybe about my 4th cast, I get a knock and set the hook and caught almost a 5-pound speckled trout.
Dang.
in the pitch black dark on a slick lure. So
here, go ahead.
I was going to say, just from here on out, man, you're not ever going to catch me not casting.
That's right.
And like I said, it was pitch black dark. For whatever that says, I read this book that Captain Bobby gave me several years ago called Plugger, and it's about this guy Rudy Grigar. I hope I'm saying his name right. But anyway, his nickname was Plugger, and he was this big artificial only wade fishing trout guy. He kind of almost, I wouldn't say invented, maybe pioneered fishing with artificial lures for trout, and he only wade fished. And in his book, he talks a lot about catching trout and both redfish in the pitch black dark. He would almost sometimes go out at night on purpose and like not fishing around lights, not fishing the moon, not fishing anything like that except for starlight, and doing really good. So it just goes to show you how intuitive these fish are that we're trying to catch. You know, that they can they can forage in the pitch black dark. They can find something to eat.
Joe over at Northwest Florida was telling us, I don't remember if it was last week or one of the times we collaborated, and he was saying those guys fish out of the kayaks over there at night. They go pitch black and fish a little bitty drop off and stuff and just absolutely whack them.
Yeah.
Their goal is to go fish at night. You're not fishing lights or anything like that. You're just fishing what you know holds fish in that pitch black. And that's wild to me. So that's cool to hear your story collaborating with that as well.
Yeah, no, I felt it's so weird. It's so strange to cast because it's almost like you have to you don't have the horizon or anything to kind of keep your eyes like level
oriented
with the water. Yeah,
right.
With the water and whatnot. So it's like a little bit weird, especially when I was going to cast, you know, for a while. It was just a little strange. Kind of had to like almost get your bearings a little bit, which is kind of kind of tough. Man, it was a beautiful morning that morning. It reminded me of hunting, you know, because we were out there in the dark, and then the sun came up, and you hear the birds start to chirp in, and the mullet started jumping and stuff. But we had a good
coming to life.
But, yeah,
I was hunting that morning actually, and it was cold. It was very cold.
It was chilly. I was chilly for sure.
Well, good, man.
But,
congrats on that win. That's cool.
Thank you. Man, fishing's been great. I tell you what, we kind of got a little bit of a different condition that we're going through right now. We're having these, and it's not over with. Like it was started kind of last Friday, and it's going all the way through this week. And then we're getting a nip tide next week, and then the following week it's gonna happen again. But we're getting these huge negative low tides, right? And it's very typical of the winter, of the time frame that we're in. But they're all in the morning time this week and next week.
Super low this morning down here.
Yeah, 2 weeks. Yeah, so we're getting these huge negative low tides, and you know, I mean, some days it's going almost a foot negative, which really makes things challenging when we're talking about fishing these tidal rivers. There's a lot of boat ramps you're not going to be able to use with some of these negative low tides. So you've got to be you need to be aware of what's going on, because it seems like you can always get the boat off of the trailer at a boat ramp with these negative lows, but sometimes I worry about getting them back on the trailer. Yeah, and you know, not being able to use the engine to push yourself back on, or you know, having to have a buddy there to help winch up or whatnot. But kind of makes for an interesting situation fishing, because I mean, it completely drains all the flats in any of these tidal rivers. And to me, it kind of it bunches them up. It's kind of one of those deals. If you go fishing that day, usually if you catch one fish, you found all of them. You know what I mean?
Right. They don't have many choice. They don't have a whole lot.
That's right.
To go.
Yeah. So when you think about a river like Dog River, where you're probably your mean depth all the way through Dog is probably 3 to 4 feet is about your average all the way through it. You want to go and target those like places that are regularly 7, 8, 9 feet deep or whatever. It would probably most likely congregate the fish like that. And we're having a very nice cold snap here. It's been cold, and we just got another front on Monday, so it's reinforcing the first front that we got. And it's really going to drop those water temperatures, which usually pushes, will make the fish usually push up into whatever system they're in.
Mm-hmm.
In Dog River, Fowl River, and then even over in the Eastern Shore on some of those other rivers like Magnolia or Fish, it generally pushes those fish north, up the river. So I don't ever think you can really go too far up some of these rivers sometimes. I think we're going to hit on that again in a little bit.
Yeah, for sure. I really like our Hey Cap question this week. Yeah, I'm looking at the forecast here, man. It's cold's kind of here for a little bit. It's going to be the high Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. The highest high is 57 in there. Be 34 on Saturday morning, so it's here.
Yep, she's dug in.
I am mad at that.
The other thing that's going to present is, like last week, the water temperatures were getting into the mid to lower 50s in areas, and it probably is going to cool off even more than that. Sometimes that's going to kind of make those fish act a little, the speckled trout particularly, and I've seen it with redfish as well. It's going to make them want they're going to slow down a pretty good bit as far as the bites. So what you need to do is slow down even farther with your retrieve. The slick lures and grubs and crankbaits and stuff, you need to crawl those things along, and the bite's going to be very subtle. So if you're reeling along and something feels funny, just set the hook, because a lot of times that's a bite. That with a little saying we always have is, man, hook sets are free. They don't cost anything, you know?
That's right. Like Luke got a crack out of that whenever he was fishing with me and Patrick.
Oh, yeah.
Hook sets are free. He loves that.
That's right, man. Yep, use them up, man. Use them up. You don't run out.
That's right. Well, I guess you could. Setting the hook like you do, you'd be sore by the end of the day if you set it all the time.
Oh, shoot, bro. You better bring friends if you think I'm going to get sore. But anywho, that should be real interesting. Like I said, it definitely should congregate the fish. This is we're always singing as trout fishermen in the winter. We're always singing the blues about, man, it won't ever get cold. Man, it won't get cold, you know. And now it's like, hey, well, we got it now. You know what I mean? You ain't got any excuses anymore. So
that's right.
It's nice and chilly. We're actually having a winter for once. It feels like.
Yeah, I mean, it's only been for about a week, but yeah, it seems like it's going to be a little stretch here of some good stuff.
Yeah, I say that. I mean, I just feel like the water temperatures have gotten down good this year.
We definitely did not have that at all last year.
No,
we cold for any amount of time at all last year.
It was very mild as far as winters go. So we'll see what it does. I would stay same presentation that we've been talking about, like I just kind of mentioned, you know, using some type of grub. And a lot of things, something with the grub that's worked for me when we hit these kind of periods is I like a paddle tail grub to make it maybe look like a minnow or a mullet or a pogey, something like that. And a lot of times instead of hopping it along like we're used to, just slow roll that thing. Mm-hmm. And you can almost drag the bottom with it, you know, because if we start to if you guys are out on the water here in the next little while and you're seeing your water temp like down in the low 50s, you know, 53 or less, really just slow that thing down, drag the bottom. I've seen where that works really well to get it. Sure. Like I said, it is super subtle sometimes. Trout are cold-blooded just like me, you know, so they
that's right.
Their metabolisms are controlled by the water temperature. So the lower the water temperature go, the more their metabolism slows down, and they're not going to be able to feed just because their bodies are so slowed down. They're not going to be able to feed like normal. They want to feed, they need to feed, but it might not yank the rod out of your hand.
Yeah. So we were talking not too long ago about, you know, the mullet transition out of the tidal rivers and that leaving a gap for a really good artificial bite. Are you seeing those mullet kind of getting out of here?
It's a little bit river to river. It's a little bit different. You know, like it seems like the times I've been in Foul River, I've seen a lot of mullet. And then Dog River seems to have, I wouldn't say it's cleaned out, but it's not near as many in there as Foul. Probably what's caused that too is Foul tends to be a little bit is much deeper system than Dog is, but a lot of the bait has gotten out of Dog River, which is kind of neat to see. But there's still a bunch in Foul. Haven't been a whole lot of other places between those two, but it's feeling more like a normal winter in the rivers as far as that goes. And the one thing I have been picking up on is that when I am fishing, and I'm seeing some mullet jumping or seeing a few pogies flip or something like that, the trout are honed in on that. You know, that if you started to see some of that activity, you need to be fishing that area.
That was our setup. That was our setup the other day when we got on those few studs.
That's right.
Definitely noticed that in that area.
We fished around, didn't see any bait except for the one spot that bait was piled up. We never got
no fish. A lot of bait, no fish.
But you know, we all the other areas we fished, there's a total lack of life, and then boom, we found that life and started catching fish, and that seemed to be the drill.
Yep, for sure, man. Ready to move on to the Hey Cap question? We got a good one this week. I'm excited about it.
Yeah, no, me too. I was looking forward to that one.
All right. This week's Hey Cap was brought to us by Foster Contracting. Often, when a business is small, you miss the professionalism you get with larger companies. That's not the case with Fortified Roofing Pros. They're a family-owned business that is big enough to get the job done, but small enough to care. If you're looking for quality construction with a dependable, licensed, and certified Fortified Roofing professional, give the Fortified Roofing Pros a call at 251-973-9999. Remember to support the local businesses that make the local podcast possible and check them out at fortifiedroofingpros.com. All right, Captain Blood. This week's Hey Cap question comes from Ed Jackson. Ed Jackson submitted the question over on the Alabama Saltwater Fishing Report private group on Facebook. He said, "Hey Cap, I hear y'all talking about running up the tidal rivers and fishing creek mouths and drop-offs. I'm curious how far up these rivers you are talking about. I'm speaking of the Delta side with this question, and is this area even considered tidal? I know the lower parts are, or are you mainly speaking of fish, dog, fowl, and magnolia rivers?"
So just in general with your question there, it's the same. You know, you talked about, he asked about the Delta, and then he's asking about the tidal rivers. And it kind of works the same with both of them, okay? So when these fish kind of get into their winter pattern, you're going to have these warm-ups, and then you're going to have these cool-downs. Right now we're in a cool-down where the water temperature is dropping. I don't know what it is that makes these fish want to swim up the rivers and in the backs of these creeks and stuff, but when it gets cold, but that's what they do. And the same thing happens in the Delta. You see these cold snaps, and you'll be catching fish like let's just take like October, November time frame. You'll be wrecking the fish like right around the causeway or just north of the causeway or just south of the causeway. You get that water temperature to start dropping real good, and those fish just want to go north. You know what I mean? You'll catch them one day around the causeway, and then 2 or 3 days, a couple days later, you catch them all the way
further up. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, no. I mean, you'll see them move up to like Gravine Island or something.
Oh, wow.
You know, that's a good 10. I guess it's like 10 or 12 miles up the Delta.
So they can really move.
They really do a lot. And they do the same things in these tidal rivers. And that's kind of one of these little patterns I've been kind of really dialing into the past several years in these tidal rivers, like when we're talking about dog and fowl and fish and magnolia over there in the Eastern Shore. And I'm sure it happens like over in Orange Beach area around like Palmetto Creek and off of Wolf Bay and all that kind of stuff. Those fish are going to get in those creeks for whatever reason. And when it cools off, those fish push up. And then when it warms up, they come back out, and they'll get back out in the main parts of the rivers. So I don't think, and generally speaking, those creeks that we're talking about that they push up in, they're usually deeper. And that's what the fish are doing, is trying to find deeper, more stable water. If you think about, it takes a lot less time for 3 foot of water to cool off 10 degree, or, let's say 5 or 6 degrees than it does 8 to 12 foot of water. It's going to take a lot longer for the cold to get down to the bottom, to affect those fish. That's right. I really wish, that's going to be my question for St. Peter when I get to the Pearland Gates, if they send me that way, but why do they want to go up whenever it gets cold? Maybe that's it. Just that those creeks usually have a little bit deeper, more stable water in them. But yeah, man, you can't go too far up any of these creeks. If the boat will go up there and you start to find decent water depth, 6 foot or more, 5 foot or more, something like that, you're generally going to find some fish. It's kind of some fun stuff to go and scout, because you really never know. Man, sometimes you're catching fish. I mean, I know like over in Bayou La Battery, I've been some of those creeks along the north part of the Mississippi Sound. You'd be surprised where you could catch trout, like good, and I'm talking about good sized trout in some of these creeks. They're barely big enough for the boat to float through. You know what I mean? They're like literally 25 foot wide, and you can go up there and find some deeper water. And
that's fun when you find them up there, because they are stacked.
Yep.
Find them in those little deep pockets up there. Like you talk about the skinny little I don't even know, canals or whatever you want to call them. Man, that's fun. Yeah. When they get stacked up in there.
Yeah, we did that with your buddy Luke there, and that's
me, you, Pato, and Luke whacked them.
Yeah.
I mean, you're casting 15 yards. It's not even that wide of an area, and just absolutely smashing them. It's fun.
Yep. When you make
we were catching them. Pato couldn't really catch anything, but
take it easy on my boy Pat now.
I'm just kidding, Pat. I'm just kidding.
If you wouldn't gave him some trash talking, I would have. So
that's right. That's right.
Well, I hope that answers. Yeah, I hope that answers my man's question. And always pay attention to that bottom machine, man. You get in those areas like that, start watching that bottom machine. That bottom machine will tell you if there's any life there or not. The meter will light up. Look at the meter.
That's an awesome question, Ed. That's a great answer, Captain Richard. Ed's going to get a prize pack from the Slick Lure. Ed, make sure you email us your shipping address at alabama@bestfishingreport.com, and we'll get you those Slick Lures out. Captain Richard, I know you've been busy, man, but if folks want to book a trip with you, what's the best way to get in touch with you?
Man, probably shoot me a message on my my telephone or Facebook, or look me up on my website, coldbloodedfishing.com. Phone number 251-459-5077.
Awesome, Cap. We appreciate the report, and as always, we'll talk to you next time. Keep whacking them.
Thank you, sir. You too.
All right. Always good to hear from old Captain Blood. That's a great Hey Cap question, Ed. We appreciate that. Let's head on down to the Orange Beach, Gulf Shores area. Let's get an East Side inshore report. Let's see what old Captain Dusty Hayes is up to. What'd you say, Cap?
Oh, man, another day. It's trying to stay warm for sure. What you been up to over there?
Definitely been a little chilly. It's beautiful over here right now, though. Seems like the the front kind of came in and blew pretty hard, but now it seems to be quite enjoyable out there.
Yeah, absolutely. I really don't mind some cooler weather.
Oh man, I'd rather bundle up and be freezing than sweating my what's off all day. I love the cold. I welcome it.
Yeah. I mean, you can always dress warm and be prepared, and there's a point down here where it's too cold, but for the most part, I mean, it's usually comfortable if you're prepared and you take the right steps to keep them warm. But I don't mind it really at all. I've been fishing at night a lot. It's cold, but if you dress right, it's no different than getting in a deer stand or in a duck blind this time of year.
For sure. Well, that's a great topic right there. We can hit on that for just a minute if you don't mind. I mean, I know you fish from a kayak a good bit. I mean, as far as boots, pants, bibs, what's something that you just cannot live without at this point?
I tell you, I layer big time. I think my two biggest, a heavy, weather jacket is great, and you can really just go whatever you like. But man, duck hunting jackets are incredible. Like I use a Browning Wicked Wing, and I use it for both hunting and fishing in my kayak. And the reason why is because it's a waterproof layer. It's very thick. It's warm. Got a lot of pockets on it. It's still lightweight, and it's very movable, so it's not binding me up while I'm casting or fighting fish. And a couple other key components for me is I use my Afco Bibs, and so I'll wear depending on how cool it is, and I'll really wear them starting Halloween all the way through almost spring break. I'll wear them religiously, even if I have a pair of shorts on underneath, or like this morning I had a pair of blue jeans and my long johns underneath them. And, they're blocking the wind, and they keep that water, whether it's from my paddle, washing the boat, whatever it may be, keeps that water off of me, keeps me dry. And a good pair of waterproof boots, a lot of people like the Extra Toughs, and they're good boots. They are not the warmest, though. I wear them in the summer, but, man, this time of year, you will freeze your toes off.
Need a little bit of insulation.
Old school. Yeah, those lacrosse burleys for $80, they're hard to beat. I wear them, turkey hunting, deer hunting, duck hunting. I wear them. I love them on the kayak because they're high. I can tuck my bibs in. They keep me dry. They keep me warm. I can wade in the water without having to wear waders. I prefer not to wear waders on my kayak just because it's not the safest thing. You can do it if you know where you're at, you know what you're doing, but spend a little extra money on some proper gear.
Makes all the difference.
Good waterproof.
You get out there and get cold,
absolutely.
It's over with. I mean, you're not going to enjoy yourself at all.
It's game over. Yeah, me and Chris went fishing a few weeks ago, and I normally really don't complain about the cold. And my burleys, I left them in the back of my truck, and they were soaking wet. So I wore my Extra Toughs, and it was allowing air up my bibs, and it was game over for me in an hour. I was like, man, I got to go home. I'm done.
Yep. That ain't
just,
fun.
Yep. So,
well, good deal, man. Let's get into this fishing report. What you been up to over there?
A little bit of everything. I hadn't fished the surf too much, but I've definitely been keeping tabs with some guys that are hitting the beach. And, it still seems like there's definitely a good number of big black drum, a few redfish even off the beach. They are doing some dredging in Perdido Pass. So that'll kind of slow the sheep's head bite up in the pass. Some of those fish around the bridge will get a little finicky because all that noise and racket underwater. There'll still be fish on the jetties and under the bridge, though, both redfish, black drum, and your sheep's head. But as far as, along the beach line, still guys catching pompano, especially on the far east side of things. Good size ones, too. I've seen a lot of good quality fish caught. A lot of guys using ghost shrimp. And I tell you what, a jig has been very productive for a bunch of people, too. I've seen a bunch of guys throwing banana-style jigs and just slow hopping them off the bottom, making long casts. And they've been producing not necessarily, you're not going to catch 10 or 15 fish, but it's a good time of year to do it. If you get a good incoming tide, good clear water, you may not get a lot of bites, but usually if you get a bite, it will be a pompano, simply because, throwing a pompano jig in July, anything that's moving is a target from 100 different species.
Right.
This time of year. If you got something hop along the bottom, it's not a whole lot that's going to be taking a swipe at it. Maybe a bluefish, maybe a redfish, but most likely it's going to be a pompano. On top of that, this is a great time of year to fish inshore for pompano, like your inshore reefs, which there's quite a few of in the east side of the area, like Orange Beach. There's a couple around Ono Island and further up Perdido Bay. It takes a little skill. The incoming tide is definitely crucial on them as well. When you're fishing in the bay, you'll catch them on the outgoing, but free line and shrimp to throwing pompano jigs, and even catching them on artificials such as plastics, like swim baits, stuff like that. You'll catch them on top waters. You'll catch them on a variety of things. I'll say top water is just more of a warmer water thing, but I've caught them on twitch baits, DOA shrimp, a pretty wide variety of baits as far as on the inshore reefs. And then if you get up further in the creeks, for even Perdido River as a bigger watershed, which would be the east side of Alabama, west side of Florida, the river splits the border. A lot of redfish and trout move up there with the stripers, catfish, all kinds of stuff in those deep holes. And then you kind of get into the Wolf Bay area. You got various little bayous and creeks, everything from Ingrams to, Wolf Creek to Hammock Creek and all that. Same thing with Bonscore River, Fish River, all that. And those trout and redfish are going to move further upriver as it gets colder. And I know y'all talked about earlier on the show, and it's kind of the same thing over here, as it gets colder.
I was definitely going to hit on that with you. We just talked about that with Richard, yeah.
Yep, and as it gets colder and colder, those fish will condense further and further and further up the creeks, and almost to the point where, I was talking about this the other day with somebody, is a lot of people lose confidence. They'll get so far up the creek, they're like, man, there's no way there's a trout or redfish up here.
Oh, they're in there.
And they're in there. You're catching panfish, you're catching bass, and they're up there, and something I look for is, looking for bait. Like if you see mullet jumping, even, way up this creek, you think, man, there's no way there's a saltwater fish this far up. Absolutely, they'll get that far up. And another thing too is when you get up in those creeks, it looks like it's just like any other creek or river or bayou, whatever you want to call it. But it looks like, those headwaters, you think, okay, I'm in some creek in the middle of the woods somewhere. But all that lay down structure, those logs and stumps and branches and all that stuff, any hard structure, if you see a few barnacles on it, it may not be a ton, but even if you see a couple on there, that's enough for it to be basically show you like, hey, there's some salinity there for there to be, barnacle growth. So there's definitely the availability for saltwater species. It's an awesome thing to do this time of year. A lot of guys throw twitch baits in various plastics. I see y'all use the slick lure a lot over there on the west side, Mobile Bay and all that. Over here, I don't have much confidence in it on the east side. Not saying it wouldn't work, but I throw a lot of really small stuff, 2 to 3 inch swim baits, paddle tails on 1/8 ounce jig heads, and you're definitely going to get a lot more bites that way. As far as more quality fish, you're definitely going to catch most of the fish in that school as far as size wise, and you will catch the big fish on the small baits too. If you do find a school of trout kind of keyed in, and you're like, okay, I know they're right here in this little section, it doesn't hurt to throw a big bait through there a few times and see if you can pull that bigger fish out of the school.
That's something a little different.
Yep. And then on the warmer days too, twitch baits and various things like that will work. I've even, my buddy Steven got a nice one on a Shimano topwater plug a couple weeks ago. It was right after Christmas. He got one almost 5 pounds, way up a creek on a topwater plug. So you get a little warm trend, they'll get a little aggressive on you for sure.
I know that I've talked to Veche about it, and I've talked to Patrick Garmison talks about it a good bit, and I believe it was last week on the 7th show. He was talking about crankbait and how he's been throwing a good bit of crankbaits. Do you like doing that as well?
Absolutely. Me and Chris been fishing a lot the past few months, a lot together in the kayak, and we've been fishing a lot of creeks. And crankbaits are just an awesome tool, and even jerk baits, all kinds of lip plugs. And I'll say jerk baits, a lot of people think the traditional MR17 mirror lure, twitch bait, stuff like that. But just a regular bass fishing crankbait, my personal favorite is the Rapala ripstop, the 9 size. And man, I catch everything from largemouth to redfish to speckled trout to stripers to you name it on that bait. I have full confidence in it. And, even the bigger size will work at times. Various colors on whatever you like. Like I like more of a natural, like a brownish kind of color, maybe with some yellow or orange in it. As far as crankbaits go, I use crankbaits a lot. Like I'll use square bills, just like you would use for bass fishing, in a lake or river or a pond. Square bill crankbaits do good, especially for redfish. It's a real, heavy body type, similar to a wake bait, but they're going to go a little deeper, usually in the 2 to 4 foot range. And when you get up in those creeks, you can bounce that off that wood, off that structure, off those docks. And if you aren't catching redfish, you'll catch largemouth bass, which is, this time of year, I don't complain about anything that hops on a hook.
Heck no, me neither.
And other crankbaits, a lot of flat-sided baits do really well. This past few weeks, man, the Berkeley Juke has been just one of my top baits. Like I have a rod in my truck. I honestly don't think I've taken that lure off in a month. I've used it everywhere from different creeks to the reefs to different rivers, and it's done very well for me. Bass, trout, redfish, all the above. I mean, it's just been a killer lure. It's a flat-sided crankbait, but you can twitch it like a twitch bait. You can burn it. You can, a stop, go, retrieve. Very erratic. Man, the other day I was fishing in a creek, and there was trout and bass was chasing up to the kayak every time, and I was just, burning it, and it was freezing cold. So it's something that a lot of people don't do because it's unconventional as far as, saltwater fishing. But I would say for the most part, most of the stuff that I'm going to throw, not only in the creeks and stuff this time of year, but all year, is stuff that you wouldn't see in your normal saltwater fisherman's tackle box. I don't throw a lot of voodoo shrimp and DOA shrimp and mirror lures. I do a lot of, almost freshwater tackle, the chatter baits and different spinner baits, crank baits, all that stuff. And it works very, very, very well. And you kind of got to go through and find some stuff that, works for you, what you have confidence in, different baits, different colors. Like if you're fishing Mobile Bayside, you might have a totally different color scheme or size of a crankbait that's working for you. But it's definitely something that you need to, put your toes in the water and try out, because it's not something a lot of people do at all, for sure. It's more of a, I wouldn't say a secret. It's just not something that's really big yet, hadn't picked up yet, for sure.
Are you guys, I know Chris likes to go 2 a.m. and 3 a.m. I know you have that same bug. You guys been doing any of that?
Yeah, we were actually out there
like
this
dark
morning.
Fishing, night fishing?
Yeah. I think we started about 3 this morning, and it's productive. A lot of those rivers.
What are you guys keying in on at that time of night or day or whatever the heck you want to call it? What are you fishing?
Looking for bait. Like using if you do have a bottom machine on your kayak or on your boat. Looking for bait keyed in. There'll be redfish and trout that feed at night, especially on full moon nights, and then even dock lights. Like a lot of these trout, especially if you get like a warm trend. You go to the mouth of some of these rivers, and it's just like summertime. There'll be redfish and trout on a lot of these dock lights. And it's not hot, heavy action, like you would get in the summertime where they're necessarily crashing bait, but they're there. You can see them, you may have to change it up and figure out what they want to eat. I do like a lot of small flies, fly fishing. As far as redfish and trout, especially, fly is really one of the better presentations for them. Small bait fish patterns on the fly is just something it's subtle. It doesn't spook them. Sometimes a lot of these fish, they do get fished. There's nothing top secret that we're doing as far as an area or anything. We see other guys out there, and we know other guys that are out there fishing them, usually in that midnight time. So, we'll go after them until the sun comes up, basically. And, you can tell those fish have been fished. They'll be a little skittish and all that stuff. But dock lights, man, this all year, hold fish. And you got to think with the redfish and trout moving upriver, those dock lights upriver and up the creek and up the bayous are going to be where the fish are. Same thing as, as it gets warmer, and those fish get back out in the bays and closer to the passes and whatnot, those dock lights around there are going to be good. So it's not something that, this year after Sally, a lot of dock lights took a hit. Like, if this was last winter, there'd be 10 times as many dock lights to fish.
True.
This year, there's not a ton of them, as far as the paddling aspect goes. If you are in a kayak, you might only have 1 or 2 lights in a few mile stretch you're going to hit. In a boat, you have a lot more area you can cover, or I'll say a lot more area. You have as far as you want to go, but you can cover a lot more ground a lot quicker in a boat for sure. It's definitely something that if you're willing to freeze your butt off, you can find some fish doing it. It works out with our schedules. I don't mind going out there at night. I just think it's kind of peaceful, really. Kind of keys in some of those fish, but the daytime bite sometimes better, especially on a trout. Most of the time, as far as redfish and trout goes, we're not catching, dozens and dozens of fish, just a few usually a few decent redfish, and the trout are for the most part on the smaller side, but it's definitely fun stuff for sure, especially on a fly rod.
Absolutely, man. That's a great report. We got to get that east side inshore tip from you. This week is brought to us by MDH Foundation Repair. If your home is experiencing foundation problems, MDH Foundation Repair has the best solutions to fix it right and fix it now. The problems you see are only going to get worse, so don't deal with inefficient, unqualified, and pushy salesmen trying to sell you overpriced foundation repair products. The professionals at MDH Foundation will ensure you have a remarkable experience from the first meeting to the finished product. MDH Foundation Repair is redefining the construction industry and protect your most important asset, your home. Check them out at mdhfoundationrepair.com. What do you think for a tip this week, Capt?
Touching up on the river and the creek stuff again, a main thing I'll look for is bait and birds. And as far as bait goes, that could be anything from mullet to pogies and other bait fish. Now, the mullet and pogies, especially a bigger mullet, a 12, 14, 15-inch mullet, might not be standard diet for a big trout up in the creek or even a schoolie trout, but it's just kind of showing you where a lot of those fish are going to be. So you take a day like today, we hadn't had rain in a few days, and it's been fairly cold. So those fish are, for the most part, going to be nestled up further up that creek simply because that water temperature is staying cool and it's remaining cool. We're getting some sunlight in there in the back of the day. And for the most part, those fish are going to be in those tight corners, high sun. They will spread out simply because that's why they go up in those creeks. There's a lot more silt back there. Therefore, that water temperature is usually a lot warmer. At the mouth of a creek, you might have, say, 59 degrees. You go up to the back of that creek, it might be 64. So that's why those fish will push further up. But say we get some rain and, we get quite a bit of rain. Well, even though it's really cold, those fish are still going to push out just because they don't, they can handle quite a bit of fresh water, but they don't want pure fresh water and they don't want, just straight mud fresh water. Not saying they won't hang out further up, but it's going to push them down a little bit. And certain bodies of water, certain creeks will flush out a lot quicker, than others. Some, if you get a good rain, it might stay muddy for 3 or 4 days. Others, you get a good rain, it might, cloud up the next day. And then the day after that, it's crystal clear again. So, knowing the bodies of water you fish and how that water clarity affects, after a rain is crucial to finding fish this time of year. If you see mullet jumping, that means you're in a fishy area. And that can be all the way back up in these creeks and the headwaters. You'll see pogies flipping around, you'll see mullet jumping, you'll see birds diving. I mean, you can go all the way in these creeks as far as they go, up there with the brim and the crappie and all that stuff. And there'll be pelicans diving on pogies. Those trout, redfish may not even be eating those. They may be eating something else. But if those bait fish are there, usually those fish will be close by. They'll be with them. Prime example, a few weeks ago, I was telling you earlier how my buddy caught a big trout up in the back of a creek. Mm-hmm. And we had a good rain, and it stopped raining at noon. I got off at 1, and we went up the creek, and that water was just muddy. And we got about halfway up, and we were seeing mullet and pogies everywhere, even at the mouth of this creek out into the bay. And as we got further up, we stopped seeing mullet, we stopped seeing pelicans, we stopped seeing herons, we stopped seeing pogies, stopped seeing everything. We caught a few trout. We kept going up because he had caught that 5-pounder on that saltwater plug way up the creek a day and a half prior. Kept going. We never got a bite up to that point, and we never saw any bait. And the water was real muddy. And I said, hey, look, let's try to turn around, go back to where that bait was. I said, let's not fish our way back. Let's just beeline it back because we're losing daylight. We beelined it back. As soon as we started seeing mullet and pogies again, we started casting. I was throwing a jerk bait. He was throwing a Capt paddle tail. And, man, I mean, we both ended up in the last 20 minutes of daylight, I think I caught 2 reds and a few trout. He ended up catching a few trout himself. As soon as we got down to that water that had a little more salinity, had those bait fish jumping and moving, and, and they weren't even necessarily in deep holes. They were spread out on various points. Yeah, so as we moved back down the creek, we noticed that those fish were kind of scattered out all over, holding on point, wherever that bait was. And basically, in the gist of things, that rain pushed a lot of bait down and pushed the fish down with it. If you get a warmer air, warmer trend, it might take a fishing area that would normally be the size of, say, a swimming pool down to, half that creek or even a portion of that creek. Call it a third or whatever however you want to break it down. But basically, just keep in tune with your body of water that you're fishing regularly. Notice what a rain does to it, what certain winds do to it.
Crazy even, low tides.
North wind. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, north winds pushing the water out like we have right now. The water's super low.
Had those
in a lot of
negative
creeks,
tides in the
man.
mornings.
Oh yeah, yep. And it gets low this time of year, especially when you consistent north wind like we have west half the day today and west in the morning. So it ought to push a little water back in some places. But yeah, I mean, it's basically really keep up with, if you fish 2 or 3 creeks regularly, pay attention to, okay, all right, the water temps to here, this right here, and it's warmer as we get up here, but there's no bait working up here because we had rain 2 days ago. Sometimes that fresh water warms up a lot quicker than that salt will. And another thing too is, even if you're not seeing bait, that doesn't mean don't try it at all. Just keep it in the back of your mind, like, okay, we're not getting bit. We need to move back down to where we know that bait is and probably where those fish are. Salt water is a lot more dense, so it'll usually stay on the bottom versus that fresh water usually is going to be on that top surface. It might be top few inches, it might be the top couple feet, it might be kind of mixed in, whatever it may be. If it's a 10-foot hole in the creek, it might be pure fresh water for a couple feet and kind of dwindle out, but closer to the bottom, it might be a very good salinity level. So there still might be some trout that hold up there. Every body of water is going to be different. Every, rain you get will react different.
Pay attention.
Even if it's and sometimes it's a little more work than people want to put into it. But if you're fishing regularly, and especially in those areas this time of year, and that's with any fishing, but those little subtle notes, whether you keep it in your mind or write it down on a pad or, even in your pictures or whatever, or just kind of remember that stuff and be like, okay, last time we got a dumping 2 inches of rain, those back of the creeks were empty, but all the trout were on these points, closer to the mouth of the bay, and vice versa. Same thing goes back to like when we were talking about dock lights earlier. If you get if it stays cold, we don't get any rain, focus further up that creek on those dock lights. You get a rain right now on some of these areas, especially like Weeks Bay. There'll be fish down there in the lower end of Weeks Bay and that area after a heavy rain, because Fish River will dump out some serious water and put fish further out towards the mouth of the bay. So just stuff to keep in mind as far as moving and what locations to kind of key in on this time of year on those creeks and stuff.
For sure, man. I really like that addition to that tip. That's a great tip and a great answer. Captain Adam Peeples gave our offshore report, over there in Destiny. He runs One Shot Charters, and he had the talking about the historical data, helping him catch fish, in these months whenever things are a little bit different. I know sword fishing is totally different, but that really ties in with what you're talking about, just making a difference in a good day and a bad day, just paying attention to your surroundings and what has worked before as far as, comparing conditions. I really like that a lot.
Yeah, absolutely. It does the same with, everything from turkey hunting to duck hunting to trout fishing in the creeks to sword fishing, all that stuff. It all has Mother Nature takes its toll on it, all of it. And that's, if you're going to be a sportsman and chase all these things, you got to kind of put a little more effort into paying attention to those and
if you care
figuring
about
out what's
being
going to work for
successful.
you.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. You can go out and just screw around and you'll catch fish. If you're going to put in the time and do it day after day, you really got to, put in that little extra effort, especially this time of year, on conditions and water temperatures and rain and all that stuff for sure.
Absolutely, man. That's why I enjoy picking you guys' brain, because you do get so analytical with it, and you do care about being, hyper successful. Just because that's kind of how we are. So I definitely enjoy that about you guys. Well, man, if folks want to get up with you and book a trip, what's the best way to get in touch with you?
The thing you do is give me a shout at 678-897-0167. It's Shore Thing Fishing, or you can find me at Sam's Tackle in Orange Beach, Alabama. I'm usually there throughout most of the week, so I can come there help you out with any tackle needs or just chit chat with you. I get lucky. I get to meet a lot of these listeners on here that come in the store quite often. I actually met a couple guys yesterday, and I just had a guy message me a little bit ago about some tackle that listened to the podcast. So we're thankful for everybody that listens for sure.
Absolutely. Awesome, man. I was glad to hear. I know it's always fun whenever people say hello and that they enjoy the show and that it's actually making a difference on them catching the fish. That's what it's all about to me.
Yeah, absolutely. It's people that listen to a podcast like this, they're willing to put in that little extra time, and by learning what to look for helps you learn to become a better angler and fish the areas that you're fishing and be more productive. So, it's definitely a step in the right direction for anybody, whether you're a seasoned angler or a beginner. You can never learn too much.
Yep, absolutely, man. Well, as always, buddy, we appreciate you being on, and we look forward to the next time you being on. Make sure and tag you on Facebook and send us some pictures for the posts, and we appreciate it.
All right, guys, we will do. Thank y'all.
All right. That is another great Alabama saltwater fishing report. We definitely appreciate you guys tuning in this week and listening. I liked a lot of things. We got to do What Did You Learn today? This week is brought to us by KillerDock. Most fishermen clean their fish on something like an unsightly old wooden table or the top of a cooler or their tailgate. Somewhere that is not comfortable, not sanitary, and not attractive. KillerDock makes the greatest fish cleaning stations known to mankind. They are built from marine-grade aluminum and ceramic coated to protect it from harsh salt environment. KillerDock makes tables and canopies at several different sizes. So whatever you need on the dock, deck, or patio, they have a fish cleaning station for you. Check them out at KillerDock.com to see more. What did I learn this week? Gosh, I actually learned a lot. I really, really liked Captain Richard and Captain Dusty's conversations about those fish congregating way, way, way up the rivers, which kind of stems off our Hey Cap question. It sounds like you almost can't go too far. I know I've been way, way, way up some of these rivers with Captain Richard and even myself just fishing alone. Sounds like if there's bait there, check your bottom machine. If there's fish there, they should be able to bite. I think it's pretty cool. You know how rain affects every tidal river differently, and every tide, like Captain Dusty was talking about, you got to figure out what's your home waters, how they react to those different conditions. So I really enjoyed that as well. And also, I have written here on my notepad, I also learned, not necessarily learned, and actually Captain Dusty and I talked about this as well. Captain Adam brought up how his historical data and his logs can definitely determine where he's going to fish, why he's going to fish there, and the tactics that he's going to use. So I thought that was really neat as well. And Captain Dusty was talking about the same thing as far as patterning your home waters and the way things act different whenever certain things happen. So I would say that is two things that I definitely took away from this week's show. That's going to wrap it up this week, folks. You guys please subscribe, rate, and review wherever you listen to podcasts. If you'd like us to email you the podcast each week, just text the word fishing to 314-665-1767. Again, just text the word fishing to 314-665-1767. Subscribe to our email list, and we'll send you the new show each week. We'll talk to y'all next week. You guys keep whacking them. This week's Alabama Saltwater Fishing Report has been brought to you by KillerDock. Uses marine-grade aluminum to make fabulous fish cleaning tables and stunning canopies that will keep us out of the sun. KillerDock combines durability, function, and design to uniquely upgrade your entire dock experience. Visit KillerDock.com to see more. And also brought to you by Advanced Transmission in Spanish Fort. Give the professionals a call who have been trusted on the Gulf Coast for over 25 years at 251-626-6061 or check them out online at www.advanced-transmission.com. And also brought to you by SunSouth. For quality John Deere equipment affordably priced, visit your neighbors at SunSouth. Visit your local SunSouth and check them out on the web at www.sunsouth.com. Also brought to you by Coastal Conservation Association of Alabama. Check them out at ccaAlabama.org.
This week's Saltwater Fishing Report is brought to you by Angelo Depaola, the Coastal Connection with EXP Realty, your boating and beach property specialist. Check me out on Facebook at Angelo Depaola Realtor, The Coastal Connection, or call me direct at 850-287-3440.
And also brought to you by Daycool Heating and Air. Pros at Daycool have been servicing Mobile and Baldwin counties for over a decade. Contact them at 251-633-5121 or check them out online at www.daycoolair.com. They are license number AL07028. And also brought to you by Bucks Island. They have new pontoon boats, bass boats, bow riders, and aluminum boats for sale. They provide boat service on all kinds of boats, even if they weren't purchased from Bucks. Visit them at 4500 Highway 77 in Southside, Alabama, or give them a call at 256-442-2588. And also brought to you by Test Calibration. Test Calibration is your source for sales and service of diesel turbochargers and fuel injection systems since 1976. Contact them at 800-822-0057 or visit them online at testcalibratindieselandturbo.com. And also brought to you by Fishbites don't stink or leave a stink on hands and anything else. They don't require bait buckets or ice to stay fresh while you fish. Check out the full line of scented saltwater and freshwater baits and tackle at fishbites.com.